I'm going to introduce our guest speaker. She, as I said earlier, is the founder of One Earth, Linzi Boyd. And this has taken quite a few months to get us together. It's one of those things where being in Bali and time difference, but she was worth waiting for sure. And she's going to be talking today about the purpose economy, green innovation, growth on purpose. And I think it's something that will touch and inspire many of you today. So I'm going to stop my share because I've been having problems with the share. And I'll pass over to Linzi.
You're on mute, Linzi.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. I've seen that there are many different people from many different places. There's somebody here from Bradford, and I'm originally from Leeds. So that was a nice thing. Hello. And as you will have heard, I am now living in Bali, which I will come to at the end of this presentation. I recently, about 3 weeks ago, spoke on stage for the Global Chamber of Commerce, and I spoke with the Chancellor of the Exchequer, the Governor of the Bank of England, and Sir Keir Starmer, who is our potential next Prime Minister. And they asked me to do this talk, which is the purpose economy, green innovation, and growth with purpose. Now, I acknowledge that this is a 20-minute talk for Jill today. And at the end of this, I will put the recording from that session. It was on Sky News Live into the chat box so that you can watch potentially the other 3 speakers if you're interested, but you can watch the longer version of this talk. But I wanted to be able to deliver this talk to you because it's a passion of mine around the purpose economy and where the world is moving to. Now, I woke up to purpose 11 years ago, and it all started because I stood in the kitchen with my mum aged 11, and I told her I wanted to leave school. And my mum thought I was crazy. And actually, at the age of 15, I left school with no qualifications. And I started my first business at the age of 18, which was a retail shop in Leeds called Accent, which is still there today. You may know it living in Bradford. And I sold that company at the age of 20, and I set a footwear company up, and we set up 7 distribution channels around the world. And I then sold that company at the age of 24 to Caterpillar. We had them in the design museum as design classics. But I learned about trade and distribution on the job. And I realized that people needed to trade together to be able to sell their goods, sell their commodities. And then I moved into the world of an agency where I built famous brands, and I built some of the most famous brands on the high street. So people like Superdry, Wrangler, Lacoste, Topshop, Miss Selfridge, Urban Outfitters, many different big fashion brands. And 11 years ago, I walked out of that industry, and I decided to look back at that girl aged 11 and think to myself, what was it that that girl saw that wanted to be as big as Oprah Winfrey, which my mum was scratching her head about, trust me, at the age of 11. But there was something about Oprah that I saw that inspired me, that she was probably one of the only kind of enterprising purpose person at the time when I was young, you know, older now. And I realized 11 years ago that I wanted to shift the world into a new era. I wanted to build brands that were going to shift industries and make a positive change in the world. I wanted to create what I describe as the face of modern business and the face of the modern world. And ultimately, I wanted to connect developed and developing countries together so that everybody could be seen and heard, no matter where you live or the demographic that you live in. And so I'm going to take you on the journey of the purpose economy. And I'm going to share the screen, and I'm going to show you some slides. But whilst I'm doing that, I'd like each one of you to put into the chat box what your purpose is. If you know, what do you think that your purpose is? You heard me say, I'm here to shift the world into a new era. I'm building brands that shift industries. If you can, and you would like to, whilst I'm doing this next presentation, please put in the chat box what your purpose is. So I'm going to share the screen. If I can find the presentation. If I can't, then I'm not. Hang on. Desktop. No, that's not it. Let me just do this because for some reason it's gone missing. Nope. Google Chrome. No, for some reason that's very odd. That's not working. Let me just try one last thing in the Chrome. Let me try again and I'll reopen it. Right. That's opened again. Now I'm going to share the screen. Aha, we're there now. Presenter view, present. Right. Can you all see the screen?
Yes, thanks, Lindsay. It's come through.
Oh, good. Bit of a technical. I'm not the best tech person in the world with presentations, but anyway, here we go. So this was the talk that I did 3 weeks ago, and I wanted to give you the talk, but again, I'll put the link in because this talk was a longer talk and you'll get more depth when you watch it, but at least I'm able to talk with you about the purpose economy, green innovation, and growth with purpose. When I talk about the purpose economy, what I talk about is that it's the fastest growing economy in the next 10 years. And interestingly, it's still in design.
Lindsay, sorry to interrupt you, but it still says presenter window on your screen. I'm not sure if we're supposed to be seeing something underneath that.
Is it not sharing?
This window is just for you. Place it on the screen only.
Lindsay, what you've done is you've shared the wrong screen. If you share the other screen, the presenter window is your version.
Ah, is that one working now?
Let's see it come up.
It's coming.
Now?
Still thinking about it.
Otherwise, I'll do it without the deck. Let me try one last time. Oh, it's annoying. Hang on.
Right. We have something come through, but I'm not sure if it's...
So I can see your Canva screen.
Let me try again. Let me put it on presenter.
Don't use presenter mode.
Oh, don't.
Don't use presenter mode. So go back, hit present, and then present full screen.
Thank you so much. I'm not very, usually I have somebody sharing it. Thank you, guys. Right. So I talk about the purpose. So I talk about the purpose economy still being in design, and the fact that there are many different people that are playing into this market. So you have ESGs, you have SMEs, charities, organizations that are foundations, not-for-profits, but ultimately you have people brands. And the people brands are the power that are driving the purpose economy. People inside organizations, the people that are leading organizations. And what we're finding is that ordinary people are doing extraordinary things. So where did it all start from? I talk about Henry Ford's assembly line and how when Henry Ford's assembly line started, it was all around efficiency. How did we get from point A to point B? How do we manufacture a car? And then how do we sell a car? And there was never any thought process about what were we manufacturing, what were the fabrics that we were using, what petrol, how were we delivering the car, what partnerships were we doing to be able to make that happen. You heard from Jill about creating partnerships. when we were thinking about Henry Ford's assembly line, it was purely around a linear business model. And really what we were moving to was a circular business model, from linear to circular, and how we were able to build a business that was purpose-led, impact-led, that went before point A of manufacturing the car and after point B of selling the car. And what partnerships unconventionally could we create to be able to think about the production line in a different way? So the 20th century was all about profit. How do we keep things on shelves long? How do we put chemicals into foods so that they last longer? And how do we make products using emerging markets that potentially are using cheap labor, and which causes supply chain breakdown? I came from the world of fashion, and I recognized moving out of that world that fast fashion was filling up the landfills, the waste, and actually it was damaging the planet. And plastic everything, plastic in the oceans, plastic in our products, and all we were doing was creating more and more and more waste. So the 20th century was all about profit, and the 21st century is all about leading with purpose. And yet, when I moved into the world of enterprise in 2011, I did a load of research in the market, and I realized that you either had a commercial business or you had a cultural foundation business. And what I recognized was that you needed to build a business model that was driving both. An ethical business model end to end, but one that made money and increased the valuation of the company. So I transferred all my knowledge of building businesses, and I was on my 4th business, and I decided to set up business schools around the world using my method. And I had about 5,500 businesses come through the programs globally. And we started moving commercial businesses to lead with impact and purpose, but to drive an ethical business model. And we also helped foundations, charities, organizations to actually build a commercial business underneath it, so that they weren't spending 90% of their time fundraising. They were able to drive revenue into the foundation so that it was able to make money and give back to society. Now, what I recognized from my old world, and I have a video that I could share with you after this, and I'll send it to Jill. In my old world, we would build businesses, build brands around this model. You would have 3% leaders that would lead a trend. You would have 15% influencers that would influence the trend. And then that would drive 33% into the mainstream. And what I recognized, if we wanted to shift the world into a new era and build brands that were going to shift industries, I needed to go and find my 3% leaders and my 15% influencers. So I recognized in the pandemic that the world has woken up to purpose. And what I recognized was that before the pandemic, there was many leaders that were leading conversations around how do you eradicate fur? How do you get rid of plastic? How do you look at fast fashion? And during the pandemic, the trends sped up. Interestingly, purpose was one of the most searched words aligned with economy. People were searching the word purpose as much as they were searching the word economy. And what I realized in the pandemic, that people were now consciously awakening to purpose. And what that meant was that people were starting to demand transparency in the supply chain. People were starting to go, actually, I don't know whether I believe that brand and where they're sourcing their materials from, or whether they're looking after their people. And people were calling out greenwashing. And interestingly, I was taken over to COP27. I report for the BBC. And they took me over to COP27, where I reported. If you go on to my linziboyd.com, you'll watch the video on there. It's 3 minutes. And I reported on there around greenwashing at COP and what was taking place. And I found that interesting because the word greenwashing had never been used before. And fair trade, fair labor, how people were demanding that fair trade and fair labor was taking place. And not only that, people were wanting to know who was leading the change. How were these businesses looking after their people? And how were the people of the organizations being able to talk about what they stand for and what they want to be known for? And then what I recognized was that smaller brands, people were preferring to buy more from purpose businesses than they were from just sales-led organizations. And smaller brands that were leading with purpose were coming out of nowhere. And ultimately, the customer wanted to feel heard. They no longer wanted to be sold to at every point. They didn't want to have push selling. They wanted to join a community. They wanted to collaborate. They wanted to partner with the brand. And they felt like if they could feel heard, then they would join the movement. So in my talk the other day, I talked about the trends moving from 20th century to 21st century. And I was known in the industry, in the consumer world, for spotting gaps and moving very famous brands into future trends. And so I wanted to show you a few trends. And the first one is moving from faceless to face. And in the 20th century, we used to build our businesses around a faceless organization, but people are now Googling people, and people want to see into the lives of people. You just saw me say, people want to know who's sitting behind the organization. And so the face of the organization, the face of modern business, and the face of the modern world has become more apparent. Moving from competition to collaboration, where people are now in a space of no longer, we used to be in the 20th century where people were competing with other people in their industry, but now they're moving into a space of collaboration. How do they create these partnerships? And moving from unethical supply chains and unethical businesses to transparency of the supply chain. How do they look at volume data, which was very big in the 20th century, where obviously everybody's selling your data, and moving into a space which is still very, very, very early on as a trend around data for good. And how do we give the power back to the person where they're able to choose what they do with their data and hopefully give it to a cause? And the last couple is moving from lobbying to campaigning. The next generation is no longer thinking about lobbying to governments. They just campaign. They think about how do they bring their community, their movement, their people around them, and they build campaigns together to be able to impact change. And the last one is online escapism, metaverses, to digital twinning the planet. And in this space is where I realized there was the biggest trend coming, where the purpose economy needed a purpose platform. And so in 2011, I decided to vision out a purpose platform that was able to build businesses and brands online, but then impact change in the real world offline. So let me introduce you to One Earth, which is a purpose platform, and it's the first purpose platform. This is the platform that enables you to come online, create an avatar, and when you create your avatar, you're able to build a house. And as you choose what your profile is, your purpose is, your house builds. And you put your house on a street and you start connecting with people around the world, all on purpose. And you're connecting with different people around the world. and they can be in all industry sectors and all sizes. And then you learn together to grow in classrooms where you switch your business over from 20th century thinking to 21st century thinking and lead with impact and purpose. And then you trade with each other to impact change, and you trade time, and you trade knowledge, and you trade money. And this was the platform that I launched in the pandemic in 2019, actually 2020, where we got over 2,000 plus businesses coming on in 10 days. And we started connecting them, enabling them to learn and trade together. Now, I wanted to introduce you to some of the people on the platform. These are ordinary people doing extraordinary things. So these are different people. Julie King was a travel agent. Rodney Habib was a pet shop owner. Elliot Wood, engineers. Sav, a beekeeper. Rangan Chatterjee, a doctor. Claudia, an activist. However, they realized that they wanted to shift the world into a new era. And Julie King set about building a movement. She came onto the platform and built a city. And she was all about reshaping the future of travel and tourism. She brought the travel industry together. She brought 47 advocates, each with very large networks. And each one of them then opened a classroom with 380 businesses, 180 businesses. And before she knew it, she had 1,000 people connecting, learning, and trading with her to reshape the future of travel. Is there any people with dogs? If there's any people with dogs, put your hand up. Rodney Habib came into my school in Canada, and he's now the top 100 person in the world, and he's finding the cure for cancer for dogs. Elliot Wood is all about engineering a better society. They engineered Lord's Cricket Ground, and they have now got 5 co-working spaces, bringing impact engineers into their co-working space, and they build community projects all around impacting change in the world. Sav is he moved into giving nature back the upper hand and moved from a beekeeper all around bringing indigenous tribes together and building a bee movement where he brought indigenous tribes, farmers, and families together. I wanted to talk to you about these people because these people are you. They are business leaders, and they made a choice to become a business leader, an industry leader, a societal leader, or a world leader. And they decided to do unconventional partnerships where it was no longer creating a partnership in a linear business model from point A to point B, but they decided to look at the business model circularly. How could they look at other industries and connect and collaborate with other industries so that they could move into the circular economy and build a purpose-led organization? And what they were able to do is build movements on the platform and connect, learn, and trade with other people. So businesses need to come together with a 21st century mindset. I'm not going to talk you through the model, but what I will say to you is all the businesses are able to move from a push business model where they're selling the products and the benefits. They're in short-term income. They typically have one core product. They're delivering push-led sales marketing. They're driving a lifestyle business, and they move into a pull business model where they're attracting the market to them, leading with their business brand and their people brands, leading with the emotional connection of the customer, leading with the purpose, understanding what the asset is, which then enables them to build an integrated revenue system where they're no longer just selling one core product into one channel, but they're able to deliver awareness products and leverage products and scale products, and ultimately be able to campaign and moving from a sales-led campaign to a brand-led, impact-led campaign to lead the charge. So I'd like to invite you to join our quiet revolution, where you could build a brand to lead an industry to impact change in the world.
Everything is so beautiful and lovely and alive. You shouldn't say anything about anything not being.
What if you could do something different with your lives that makes a positive impact on your family, your friends, industry, even the world? The 21st century is about shifting industries towards balance between nature and technology, and how these two come together to create harmony. People have always thrived in communities, living, working, and trading together. But today, living online has become the norm. Platforms of gossip, losing sight of who we are, what we are, eager to be liked. Yet for what? What if you could join a quiet revolution, connecting people, business owners and world leaders together from first world and developing countries to impact industries and shift the world? Imagine your business as a house with like-minded people living together, connected from the global communities to the city streets, all united through passion and purpose. A brand new earth where we're building impact in every single business to be able to make a positive change in the world. Education will help children in the way that they need to learn and not in the way that society dictates. Businesses integrated into society, giving back into their communities and the world at large. Sustainability is a given, not an option. Purpose is the new trading currency, enabling business leaders to become world leaders. We are now all a brand after all. Do you want to be known in your industry, outside your industry, or even the world for making a difference? Build your brand, grow your business, impact an industry, shift the world.
Thank you very much. The final bit of my journey is I moved to Bali, and thank you. Somebody's messaged me about, do I know somebody in Bali? I've only been there 5 months. And the reason for moving to Bali was because I'd always talked about building this tech platform so that we could connect developed and developing countries. And I decided to move to Bali so that I could build out the first emerging market, so that we could build out the system and then take it across different emerging markets and actually be able to level out the playing field so that everybody can be seen and heard, no matter where you live or the demographic that you live in. Thank you very much. I don't know if, should I hand back to you, Jill?
That would be great. Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you very much. I'll be hanging around as well for some Q&A, I think. And I think you wanted me to pose a question. I'm not sure.
Yes, if you want to stop your share and we'll get everyone back into the gallery so we can see each other. Lindsay is busy putting people into rooms now, but we need a question from you. I mean, there's so much information. That was fantastic. I absolutely loved it. And I would love to have seen the picture, the face on Keir Starmer after you'd finished talking about that. I bet there was.
Well, I was on after the governor of the Bank of England who talked about inflation prices.
Oh, wow.
And then the Keir Starmer came up and talked about growth. So I was in between the two, and I did that talk longer, and I'll put the link in, but yeah, I gave you enough of the headlines of it.
You did indeed, my love. So what's your question for everybody to consider when they go into their breakthrough rooms?
Look, I've lived my life, you know, from a young age, thinking about how could I go and impact change in the world. And I always lived on thinking about, what do I want to be known for? And I created a board game which is in John Lewis. So for anybody that knows the store John Lewis, it's nationwide in John Lewis, and it's my first foundation product. I'm trying to build the first school in Bali, and I'm using the funds from the board game, and I'm hoping John Lewis might get involved, but anyway, to be able to build the first school. On the board game, I'm teaching kids to understand what their profile is and what they want to be known for. And then they race around the board building their profile online. Then they build their industry fame, building impact businesses. And then ultimately they go and build a foundation, and the one with the most impact points wins the game. So in the chat box at the beginning, I asked you, and you've all done an incredible job, I have to say, wow, like all your purposes. I don't know whether I could go through them and read them all. I'm thinking about how I can download them all. They're fantastic. So I now, if I was running this as an exercise, I would say to you, what would you like to be known for in business? What would you like to be known for in your industry?
Lovely.
What would you like to be known for in society? And ultimately, what would you like to be known for in the world?
Ooh.
And I ran this as an exercise with EY in June for their Entrepreneur of the Year, and I got half an hour with them all, and they all had to discuss this and do it as a dating thing where they were opposite each other. But it's quite a fun exercise to do, and you write it in the layers like a ladder system ascending. So I've seen your purposes, and what I wanted you to think about is, where does your purpose fit? Does it fit in the business layer? Do you want to be a business leader? Is it about the industry layer? Is it the societal layer? Or are you going all the way up to the world layer and wanting to impact change in the world? Wow. And then when you come back, let me know.
Okay, well, we've got enough to be thinking on there, and we'll see the wood for the trees, won't we, when people come back to see whether they're just doing it for their business or for the world. There's no pressure either way for everybody.
No, there's also no right or wrong positioning.
No.
You saw on my chart, I had business leaders that are doing incredible, impactful things for their businesses, industry leaders that are impacting industries, societal leaders. I had a few world leaders in there.
Yeah.
It really is where you're positioned.
We're going to send people off now. We won't be able to do the usual 20 minutes because this has been so fascinating. We've taken it a little bit longer. So go and have the conversations and see what you want to be known for. Liz is going to put you into those rooms, and then we'll have a little 5 minutes at the end. We can come back and have a chat.